Today we are with Simon Wright, the founder and chairman of TGP International, a global award-winning hospitality agency delivering high-impact work across the sector, from restaurant concepts to brand development and interior design for hotels and major developments. With more than 44 years of experience in the hospitality industry, Simon is recognized for his strategic leadership, operational expertise, and ability to shape commercially and culturally relevant F&B destinations across the globe. Welcome to the show, Simon.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in the industry? What attracted you to the hospitality business?
Probably like most people, I fell into it by chance. I think even nowadays we're not great at promoting the industry as an amazing career opportunity. We're a bit better, but definitely when I was still at school, nobody was talking to me about going to work in hospitality, food and beverage and hotels. However, I needed some pocket money. I needed some, I like to go out and enjoy myself. I always used to like nice shirts and things. So to have this, I needed some pocket money. So I got a job in a local hotel, starting where a lot of us have started, washing dishes and collecting glasses and doing all of that. And I have to say, was blessed really, because I fell into a business that, 44 years later, I'm still completely in love with, still enjoy. It's a passion, and as my wife keeps telling me, it's also my hobby, which is quite dangerous at times as well. But but it all started out purely by chance. But over that sort of period of never thought about doing anything else, because it's such a great, amazing industry to be involved in.
And how did your early career help shape into founding a business like TGP?
I have to say, I wasn't hugely ambitious about having my own business in the early stages. I like to think I was a little entrepreneur when I was at school, selling mixtapes and doing all those things that we do when we're at school to make a little bit of to have a little bit of a side hustle. But really, in the early stages of my career, I was really happy working with some of the big major hotel companies that I worked with, and I was sort of felt I was building a great career path with them. And then never really been sure why, but around the time that my son was born 25 years ago, I suddenly felt the need to go and do my own thing. And that's suddenly when the idea of doing TGP came along, and sort of started from there, really. Yeah.
So what was one of the first projects that you worked on at TGP?
So it was really lucky. I sort of we hit the ground running. We literally kicked off with 3 projects at the same time, all very, very different. And I think probably talk a little bit about how we've developed into TGP as we are. So the 3 projects, we were opening a kebab shop in East London. We were managing a nightclub, a 1,000 capacity nightclub, and we were also doing a market study for W hotels when they were first coming into the market in London. So very different, very diverse. But what was interesting about all of them, the common thread was just shaping human experiences and memories was important to all 3 of those brands, whether it was people going out to have an amazing Friday or Saturday night out in a club, whether it was hanging out in the sort of what at the time was Hoxton and Shoreditch, which was still very, very underdeveloped at the time, but was becoming one of the really cool areas in London. So doing a kebab concept, which has connotations in the UK, and doing that in an interesting design-led way, and then working with W hotels, who obviously have grown into a huge business now, but back in the early sort of 2000s, they were still very much at the forefront of the boutique hotel design-led market. So it was great to have all 3 of them with a common thread of human memories and experience sort of creation, which I think hopefully still stands true to this day with a little bit with what we do at TGP.
So what are some of the secrets that you would say are part of this human experience that you'd like to capture in the projects?
I think that there's many different levels, isn't there? I think one we talk a lot about is sort of childhood memories and nostalgia, because I think if you can create an environment that, especially around food, when people taste something or they're in an experience that sort of takes them back to that sort of childhood memory, creates a level of comfort, I think that's a really lovely sort of emotion to tap into. The other big one, which I think was one of my big learning experiences, was if you can take someone and make them feel as if they're in an environment where they are they're cool and they're relevant and they're sort of immersed in it. And I know of someone like myself who doesn't consider themselves to be cool at all, but I always remember walking into some of the Ian Schrager hotels in New York at the time, the Royalton, the Paramount, Morgans, and you were transformed. You felt like you were walking onto a film set or onto a theatre stage. The music was amazing, the lighting was phenomenal, beautiful design, all these sort of wonderful looking people in that space. It just sort of plays with your mind a little bit and takes you out of the day-to-day challenges that we all have, whether it's work, family, dealing with the hustle bustle, but you go somewhere that really sort of changes the way you think about things. And we always have this thing of it's our job to take how someone feels when they come into one of our venues and make sure that when they leave they're feeling better about themselves and about life. They might walk in a great mood. It's our job to send them out feeling ecstatic. If they come in feeling a bit grumpy and a bit down, it's our job to turn their day around and send them out feeling good about themselves and about life.
What was that moment for you? When did you first have that feeling and then decide that led to the decision of like, I want to be in hospitality and I want to create this feeling for people as soon as they enter the door?
So I mean, it's an interesting question because I think it wasn't something that I experienced that brought me into working in the world of hospitality. That came around, as I mentioned, that was more of a need that turned into a real passion. However, I've been extremely lucky to travel a lot. I've been extremely lucky to work with some amazing people that helped me understand the science and the mechanics of creating what sometimes appears quite chaotic. Sometimes it appears sort of beautifully sort of tranquil. But that idea of setting up a platform, a stage, an environment that can play with people's emotions, I think that's where I've been lucky to see that. I was very lucky to work with God rest his soul, Sir Terence Conran in the UK, one of the sort of preeminent sort of designers, interior designers, but also an amazing restaurateur. I remember walking into Quaglino's in London when it opened in the end of the 90s, walking down this amazing staircase into this beautiful room. You felt like you were in Hollywood. That's the way it managed to play with you. I mentioned the Schrager hotels in New York, where you'd walk into these hotels that again just transported you to a different level. But then you go to sort of Southeast Asia and go to these amazing sort of cafes at the side of the road in Thailand, or Singapore, wherever you might be. That again are just sort of putting you into a whole different sort of state of mind, which I think makes our industry really, really exciting and interesting because we're there to give people a good time. We're not there to save lives. We're in hospitality and not hospitals. We're there to give people a great time, which is quite nice to be responsible for.
Can you talk about one of your first projects in the region?
So I would say the first project in the region that we'd done some smaller projects. We did. Our first step into the Middle East was with the Phoenicia Hotel in Beirut, which was sort of the big landmark hotel, and that was amazing to work in this beautiful sort of Grand Dame hotel, transforming it from what had been a wonderful landmark into something really relevant and cool in the market. We brought some great brands across to go in there, and then coming across here to Dubai, and the first big project we did here that's become a landmark and has stood the test of time was Reform Social and Grill in the Lakes, which obviously we had the pleasure to work with Naeem and the Gates Hospitality team, creating the first gastro pub in Dubai at the time that became this real sort of social hub in the market. And it was all about how can we create somewhere that people will want to come with children during the day and hang out and enjoy themselves. They might want to come for a sort of a cheap breakfast after they've been and had a workout in the gym next door. But also, if you brought your partner there for dinner, they didn't look at you and think, well, you're being a bit of a cheapskate bringing me here. So the balance of interior design, the external spaces, the music, we spent hours and hours and hours getting the playlist right, great quality food, great service, and combining all those elements to create something that's special and great to see it here sort of 10, 11 years later still going strong.
Yeah, it's one of the favorite spots for
it's
the
an
community.
institution. It's become an institution, hasn't it? Yeah.
For the community,
yeah,
absolutely. And I have friends who live in the area, and they often tend to meet up there.
Yeah.
It's their meeting point, really. It's become a hub for the whole community to
Yeah.
gather. I wanted to ask you, was this one of the solutions that you proposed in terms of like a 360-degree solution, or was it only certain parts of the concept?
No, so I think Reform's actually a great, a great example of the 360 services that we do. We worked on the initial sort of concept. We worked on the interior design. We worked on all the marketing, and we supported on the operations as well. During the first sort of 4 or 5 years of it being open. So yeah, that really is a great showcase of all those things that can work well in harmony, and and that's a good example of those services. Yeah.
When you initially started out, did you know that you wanted to take this approach in terms of?
No, if I'm honest,
Okay.
I'm always very honest about our first sort of 5-6 years of TGP. Depending on who I'm describing it to, sometimes you might say it was organic, it was sort of chaotic. We were a young business. We took on projects as they came up. It was all very much word of mouth with these projects. And as I mentioned, our first 3 projects were very, very different to each other. So I think the idea of the 360 services probably really started to come probably 5 or 6 years ago, I think, is when we suddenly went, oh, this is how we can be a little bit different to some of the competition. There's some great people out there that offer design services or conceptualization, do great market studies, but we really wanted to offer a sort of an end-to-end solution for people.
Right.
Very happy to do a logo. We're very happy just to do a concept. We're very happy to work with other people collaboratively from other businesses, but to allow that service where a client can walk in and say to us, I have an idea, or I have a space that I need to fill, or we're working on a big development. Can you help us? To be able to say to them, we can support you on the market study, the feasibility and the strategy, but we can be with you all the way through to the end to actually bring it to life, to activate and execute. We're finding more and more people like that idea. It's quite nice to say to the person that writes the strategy, you're going to be responsible for delivering it as well, rather than the person that writes the strategy says, thank you very much, give it to somebody else. And then the next person comes in and complains that the strategy wasn't very good anyway. So I think it's a great potential offer for clients, but it's also very good for us. So it puts a lot of checks and balances in our business to make sure that if we design something, it has to work commercially, it has to be a great customer journey, has to make sense, it has to be able to stand the test of time. If we're working on concepts, if we're working on feasibility studies, we might be responsible for managing and delivering those businesses. So I think it brings a lot of strength to what we do.
And how did you convince brands in the beginning that this could be, or currently, how do you create this value proposition, and how do you present this value proposition across to clients now?
We just bully them and twist their arm. That's it. No, I think a lot of it's come because we've been lucky enough to build up. We're able to go with relevant examples. So it's not as if we're turning up saying, okay, we've only been doing concept development for 25 years and we're now going to add this in. We've been doing design for 20 odd years. We probably didn't do design work right at the beginning, but for the last 20 years, we've been doing design projects. We've been doing market studies. We've done concepts. We've been operators, most of us, for most of our lives. So we've always got relevant examples to show people. A lot of it comes with trust as well. Sometimes people might employ us to do the market study and the feasibility. We'll then, as part of that process, we'll actually go out to market and benchmark other people, and they'll come back to us and go, but you can do this as well. And because we've built up trust, they've seen what we've done. Hopefully they see we approach it with the right balance of analysis, data sort of review, along with creativity and commercial knowledge. They build that trust up with us so they feel comfortable to give us the opportunity.
Right. I'd love to talk about one of your latest projects, like Seed and Bloom. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Seed and Bloom's it's a beautiful project up in Abu Dhabi. Wonderful investors behind the business who already we'd known for a long time. We'd done a number of sort of projects with them over the last, since 2012 we first actually worked with them. So it's been a very long relationship. And this was them actually doing their first project in the food and beverage sector that they were investing in themselves. And it's just been great because they had a clear vision of the type of place that they wanted this to be, very well travelled, gave us lots of examples that they wanted to do. And we then had to take that vision and those dreams and knit it and build it into something that was going to work in the local market. So great from that point of view to start from the initial sort of market study, the analysis, building out the concept. Because again, sometimes you'll have an investor who has lots and lots of ideas, and sometimes you have to guide those and shape them into something that's actually going to work. So bringing it to life's been great. And then the interior design team, as we're seeing at the moment, we're just winning so many awards for the interior. To have the concept then brought to life with this beautiful interior design, and then we continue to operate and market the site for them as well. It's a beautiful project. If anyone gets a chance to go and visit, it's a great place to go and hang out. And if you need to catch up on sort of emails or meet friends and hang out for the day in Abu Dhabi, it's a great place to go and see.
What I really like about it is this community sort of aspect and the fact that you have a couple of farm-to-table options as part of the concept itself, and also the influence of the desert flower and throughout the interiors as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's some beautiful ideas that were brought to life in there, and I think that is, when you're working with a client that's got so much knowledge and so much passion about what they're doing as well, makes our job a lot easier. And you know, some of our clients are very, very focused on what does this mean commercially, but with Seed and Bloom, it's really been about sort of building something for that community, doing things that resonate with the community, and doing that in a beautiful way. There's still a commercial element to it; still needs to work, but it's been a wonderful journey to see it come to life.